Now let's play around and learn a little bit more about the DB class. So here you can see we're running a DB select, and then we're just running a simple statement, which is a normal MySQL statement. We could also run something, say for instance, like show tables. Save that, head back to our browser and refresh, and we will get an empty array. That is because we don't have any tables. Let's manually create a table in SQL Pro. So here we're going to hit a plus to add a table. We'll call it foo. Hit add. Let's go ahead and add another one. Call it bar. And now let's switch back over and refresh. So now it's showing us our tables in ODot, bar, and foo. That's great. You'll notice they're in a little bit reversed order. Not really a big deal in order for us right now. Let's get a little bit more into the basics of what we're going to need. So let's get rid of these tables and create a new table. We're going to delete these and then create a new one. And this one is going to be to-do list plural. All right, so here we're going to need a couple of things for our to-do list. One of the things for our to-do list is going to need at least a name. So we'll just start with name, and we're going to add a column for name. So we'll go here and add a column. We'll call it name. It's going to be a string or text. We don't need it to auto increment. We don't care about the length because it's text. It's going to be a set text or set length. So this should be good. Now we have our ID. Now we have our name. So let's try to build something out using just a standard database builder. Nothing too fancy, not doing into the controllers, just using our closure route. So let's head back over to our routes and go in here. And what I want to do is run a DB, and I want to run on the table. And then I want to say what my table name is, which is to-do lists. And then I want to do a object operator to get. Now let's refresh this. And we're getting nothing back, okay, because there is nothing in the to-do list table. So let's add something manually into the table. So we'll go in and add null, and then name is Hampton's list. Okay. Now let's go back and refresh our page again. There you go. So we have ID of 1 and name Hampton's list. That's good. Let's add in another one. Jane's list. Hit OK. Go back, refresh again. And now we see ID 2, Jane's list. Okay, so we're communicating with the database. We're able to pick one table and then work with that table by doing a get. Now, how about adding something to that table? We can do that by using the same table method, selecting our table to-do lists, but this time we're going to use a slightly different command. Go back to our route. Instead of get, we're going to use insert. All right, and then once we have insert, we're going to pass through an argument. And our argument here will be an array. Okay, and inside our array, we're going to pass through the name, which is the field we want to assign. And then we're going to give it a name, which would be the name of a new list. And we'll say your list. All right. No need to close that out there. We've got it closed out here. Let's save that. We actually don't need to return that. We'll just go to here. And then do what we had before, which is return DB table, to-do lists, and then object operator to get, and save and refresh. Okay, unexpected colon. See where we got that there? Did not use the right term. Now, one thing to keep in mind, I made a mistake here in this statement, but I didn't make a mistake in this statement. So before I go back and refresh this, let me go look over in SQL Pro. Hit refresh. Okay, it didn't create it, so that's good. Let's hit refresh again. Okay, so now we see we have ID 3, we have name, your list. Now when we hit refresh, we'll see your list. Okay, good. Now, if we did this again, you see it's going to add another one. So this is clearly a kind of brute force way of doing things. There's no validation. We're not checking that anything is set up correctly. We could go in and set up in our database to say that this field is unique, but we would have to do that manually, and we'd have to do that manually for everything. So that really doesn't help us out. Let's just keep pushing forward for a little bit, and we'll learn to correct for that mistake or that issue in the future. Let's head back over to our code. You can see we have inserted our to-do list name called your list. I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of that and clean up. So we'll leave our return in place, go back over here. We're going to go to our content, refresh, and remove this one here, which is the extra. And go back to our page and refresh, make sure we only have our 3. And we do, ID 1, 2, and 3. Great. Okay, so now we're back to this area, and what we want to do is look at how we can get just a particular list, maybe chain some statements together. So instead of doing a to-do list get, let's do a to-do list and then pass a where. Okay, so and what do we look for in where? We're going to say name, and then we're going to say name is equal to, which is shorthand is just nothing at all, and that will say this is equal to this. Our second argument here will be the name that you're looking for, so your list. I'll refresh and see what we get. And what we end up with here is saying that the class or the object itself of Illuminate Database Query Builder could not be converted to a string. So let's start by getting just the first one. So dash first. All right, and now we'll see we're getting an object back, which has an ID and a name. That's really what we wanted. That's exactly what we wanted. So we want to know what it is, the ID, and the name. So it is an object. It is a standard class, so we should be able to access it like an object. So here, we would just say return result, and then, for instance, the name. There we go, your list. So we're actually querying the database. We're using a where statement to find a entry in the database that is equal to a particular name, which in this case is your list, or grabbing the first of those results, because there could be multiples, and then simply outputting the name to the screen. Under our Laravel documentation, there is an entire section dedicated to queries and the query builder, which is what we've been using. So looking at a quick introduction, you'll see that we can use things like dbtable users get, which we've already used, and then loop through everything that we get back, just using a standard for each. We can retrieve a single row, which we've done by using a where statement and then doing first. We can retrieve an entire column and pluck out just the name, a list of column values, so on and so forth. It's a very powerful tool, the Query Builder. One of the things to keep in mind is that the Laravel Query Builder uses PDO parameter binding throughout. This way, it protects your application against SQL injection attacks, so there's no need to clean the strings as they're being passed through by binding. So, really great tool, really easy to use. We're going to take this a bit further by going into Eloquent, which will allow us to tie models in our code to the database with a much cleaner, easier to use language.